Hey, it's Couch Potato back with another video. This one is going to be part 2 of my favorite games of all time. So let's get into it because it's probably going to be a long one. And we'll start with a game that I hold near and dear to my heart. And that is Indigo Prophecy. Not too many people talk about this game. I know the ending is a little weird, but the first 3 quarters of this game is fantastic. From the very first opening scene, you get sucked into the story. You actually play as a bad guy, the murderer, but you didn't really know what you were doing. You were kind of taken over, like possessed. So you're trying to cover your tracks from the very beginning. And another cool thing about this game is you play all different sides of the story. You'll play the main character, you'll play the police detectives that are, after him, and it pieces together the story from different perspectives, which is pretty cool because you play as both sides. So that you committed a murder, but then you got to play as the police as well, trying to discover, what's going on. And it's just a fun game. Really enjoy it. Like I said, the ending is a little weird, but this game is fantastic. I love playing it, and it was Telltale Games before Telltale Games. Basically, it's the same type of deal, interactive movie type of deal. So you're just playing through this game. You hit buttons as they pop up on screen and things like that. But you do get choice of what you want to do. Like, one of the cool scenes is when you get home, you have a certain amount of time before the police show up to, fix up your apartment. You can wash your clothes, wash your hands, tidy up and stuff like that. And depending what you decide to do will determine, how the meeting goes when they finally arrive. So it's just a cool little thing. So one of my favorites. Next, we have The Last of Us Remastered. If you have not played this game yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. You need to go play it. Absolutely fantastic. The remastered version obviously looks a little bit nicer, plays pretty much the same, but they did add, I believe they added like a little bonus side story that you can play, and it's Ellie. You play as, I think her name's Ellie. Can't remember. It's been a while, but it's Elle or Ellie. But fantastic game. I love the dark grittiness of it. Not much to say because most people have played at this point. Next, we have Beyond Two Souls. Beyond Two Souls, another interactive movie type game. If you couldn't tell, I love these type of games, like Telltale games, any interactive movie type game. I just am entrenched in the stories, and I love, playing through the story because I'm more into gaming for the stories than I am for anything else. I do play some games online, but in a whole, I much rather play campaigns. I used to play a lot of online when Call of Duty 4 and stuff like that was out, but lately I've been mostly dealing with story-based games, RPGs, just things that have a good story and that I can play through and enjoy at my own pace. So Beyond Two Souls, fantastic game. Basically, you're this girl who's been a lab rat, and she has special powers, and she has this soul that's linked to her, and you can use this soul to get through certain obstacles and to progress through the game. It's just a cool concept, and you can possess people with the soul, I believe, if I recall. It's been a little while since I played this, but I believe you can possess people with the soul and make them do things. But you can definitely knock over items and make people go look to get them out of your path so you can go. It's just a really fun game. Like I said, the story is very good and it's immersive. And from start to finish, I wanted to know what was going on and how this was going to end. So it's really nice to play through that if you haven't. Next, we have Alice, The Madness Returns. This is on 360 and on PS3. So regardless of which system you have, you can play this. It's also backwards compatible with the Xbox One. But this is a fantastic, I know I say fantastic too much. This is a great platformer. Basically, it's your standard platformer. It takes place in Alice in Wonderland, but very dark, very macabre, or however you pronounce it. So you play as Alice and you go through, and it's just a fun platformer and a different take on Alice in Wonderland. A lot of like little puzzle solving and some interesting creatures and characters that you run into, like flying pigs, and you have to hit them with this salt shaker type of deal. But if you're into platformers, highly recommend picking it up. It is very fun. Next we have Fear, and there's a couple games of this. I have all 4 of them for 360. Fear, Fear 2, Fear Files, and Fear 3. I love this game. I love the series. I like that it's first-person shooter, but it adds like a survival horror type of deal to it. You're dealing with spirits and things like that, and ghosts, and it's just really fun, and I really enjoyed going through the campaign of this. It does have some jump scares, but if you're into survival horror and into first-person shooters, this is a little combo of both. Definitely worth a playthrough. Next we have Gears of War 2. Gears of War 2 is, a huge hit. There's not really much to say. Most people have played this at this point. If you haven't, highly recommend picking up and playing it. You can get it for dirt cheap right now, and it has a really good campaign. I really liked it. I mean, it's not the deepest thing, but it's definitely something that'll keep you wanting to go through the game. Definitely a lot of fun, and just a great franchise and a great game in the franchise. I think Gears of War 2 is probably the best of the Gears of War games, even though I did like Gears of War 3. 4 was really good as well, but it was pretty short, which kind of disappointed me. But you can't go wrong with Gears of War 2. And Gears of War 1 is really dated if you play it now. And on top of that, when you play Braum at the end, he's a pain in the ass. But definitely Gears of War 2. And then we've got a little underrated RPG. At least in my opinion, it's underrated. Not a whole lot of people talk about this game or bring this game up, but Kingdoms of Amalur, a outstanding RPG. The only downside was it wasn't 2-player, so there wasn't a co-op. It was pretty much a single-player RPG, which is not bad, but I would have liked to have been able to play this with a friend or my brother and experience it. But as it is, it's a amazing RPG for this generation. The story is written by R.A. Salvatore, the guy who writes a lot of fantasy novels, so you know you're getting a very good story behind this game. And on top of it, the gameplay is fantastic, and you can play as you want. There's different skill trees, different ways you can play, different classes. They have tons of options, tons of hours of gameplay I've dumped into this, and at some point I plan on picking it back up and playing it again. So if you're into RPGs and you want a really good underrated one that you can pick up for cheap, highly recommend Kingdoms of Amalur. You can't go wrong. Next we have Theme Hospital, another little underrated game not too many people talk about. It's kind of funny. You're running a hospital, and basically you set up your hospital, you pick what rooms you want, how you want to run it, you choose your staff, so you have to pay for your staff. You can put things like soda machines in, bathrooms, all the different diagnostic rooms and doctor's office and stuff. It's really fun, and it's one that I don't really hear too many people talk about, but it's a game that I think everyone should experience at least one time. It's really fun, and just the goofy ailments in this game. So you got like bloated head people where you have to make a room that deflates their head. You have the Invisible Man where you have to give him a potion so he becomes visible again, and just a bunch of kooky ailments that people have. So you progress through this. It gets harder as you go because they'll give you like smaller spaces and you have to do more with that space. So you have to really plan how you're going to run your hospital and become profitable enough and cure enough patients to move on to the next hospital. So definitely a lot of challenge in there as well, and it's just fun, and a game that I often bring up when I'm talking about childhood memories, just because I had so much fun playing it on PC, but I got the PlayStation version. So next we have probably my favorite RPG of all time, and that's Grandia 2. Grandia 2 is a phenomenal game. It has probably the best combat that I've ever experienced in games. I love the sliding turn progression thing. It's a shame that Grandia Extreme had such a lousy story, and because Grandia Extreme had the best combat system I've ever seen. You learn moves as you battle through dungeons and stuff like that, and your teammates link up and learn moves together, so it kind of adds like a surprise element to it, as well as having the instead of the sliding turn progression, like this one has a bar that goes across and you see the characters' faces and the enemies, and it tells you like in what order they get to attack and do an action. So I thought that was a really sweet way of doing combat. And then like in Grandia Extreme, if Grandia Extreme's combat was in Grandia 2, it would probably be the best game ever made, honestly. Just the way that your teammates link up and learn moves as you're playing through the game, and it's like a surprise, as well as the turn progression wheel, which is really sweet because you can plan if an enemy's gonna get a move off, you can cancel those moves a lot of times. So you got to plan like what you want to do with each of your characters. If you want to take the turn to cancel one of their moves, or if you want to use your turn to heal or do special moves or whatever. Just fantastic game, fantastic series. The reason I have 2 here is because this is the US version of Grandia 2, and this is the sweet Japanese version. And the Japanese version has a nice little like art book. Japanese always get the coolest special editions. So I had to pick this up. The price was pretty good on it. Got it sent over from Japan, and Grandia 2, favorite RPG ever. So had to represent with getting the Japanese version as well, so I can play the English version and just have the Japanese version for my own collection. Next we have a childhood classic, one that I played a ton of when I was growing up, and that's General Chaos. General Chaos, it's not really an underrated game, but definitely a game that I don't think a ton of people have played. Maybe if they were Genesis owners growing up, they probably played this game, but on the whole, probably not a whole lot of people have played General Chaos. It is a very fun game, and it utilizes the multi-tap, so you can have up to 4 players playing, which is recommended because it's the most fun, but you can play with 1 or 2 players, it's just as fun. Mostly with 2 players. 2 to 4 players is the most fun I've had. It's recommended because each player can choose a character to play as. So what it is you're a squad of army soldiers, and each one has a different skill set. So you have like the dynamite guy, he throws demolition charges. You have a machine gun guy, you have a flamethrower guy, and then you have, I believe, a guy who just, I forget what the other guy does, but they each have their own special skill set and use. So it's basically like a map. It's only one screen, a map, and each squad starts on one side of the map, and then you can move your way around the map, and basically you just want to take out the other soldiers by using your squad and different tactics that you can learn. Like, you have to learn how to play. Like the dynamite guy, you have to kind of sneak around and throw charges and throw the dynamite behind barricades and stuff like that. That's his use. And then the machine gun guy, obviously you spray from across the screen. And then the flamethrower guy, you got to get a little more up close and personal. It was just very fun to play with multiple people, like I said, because you just get a kick out of all the things that happen. You know, there's field medics that come out and try to revive your fallen soldiers, and just some of the death scenes are pretty cool. Like guys get toasted with the flamethrower or blow up from grenade. It's just a really fun experience, especially, like I said, if you're playing with multiple people. And it does utilize the multi-tap for Genesis, which I believe doesn't get a whole lot of use, honestly, besides like sports games. But that's definitely a game that's not a sports game that you can use that for. Next we have Pigskin Foot Brawl. Really fun, like arcade sports type of game. It's basically football meets rugby meets medieval times. There's no downs. You just run with the ball until you score a touchdown. Each team has to fight over the ball. You can pick up weapons like maces, swords, ropes, and you can actually kill the opposing team players in this. And that's pretty much what you want to do, because you want to have the least amount of people on the board at one time, because pretty much you just run back and forth across the screen until someone scores. So the least players you have on the field, the more chance you have of running across and scoring. There's also a ton of obstacles. Like you can run into a tree or a pile of rocks or fall into a lake, or in the castle section you can fall onto the floor. There's like trapdoors, and just a fun game to play. Even more fun if you play with a friend. You can either play on the same team or against each other, I believe, and just it's a lot of fun, and it's not hard to pick up and play, and you catch on pretty quick as to what's going on. And there's definitely a lot of wow moments and laughs in this, especially when you do some of the kills and you see, like, say you pick up the mace, you'll see the guy laying or kneeling on the turf with the mace club like stuck in his head, or in his mouth or whatever, because you took him out with it. So it's just a fun game to experience. Next we have Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition. I know Street Fighter 2 Turbo for Super Nintendo is a little bit better, for sound and graphics, but I was a Genesis kid growing up, and this is what I remember. And either way, you can't go wrong with Street Fighter 2. Probably the best fighting game ever made. It could be arguable, but Street Fighter 2 is probably the best fighting game that has ever been made. It's really fun. There's a ton of characters to choose from. Or not a ton, but there's a lot of characters to choose from. A lot of fighting styles. The backgrounds for the fighting arenas are really nice. They really add to the flavor. And my favorite's Sagat. Sagat, or yeah, my favorite's definitely Sagat. And then I think secondary, I would play Zangief just to like pick people up and slam them and stuff like that. Zangief and Sagat, but definitely Sagat. Next we have Golden Axe, an arcade classic that was brought home to the Genesis, and I actually own the arcade cabinet of this. It's actually in my brother's garage, and sometime I'm gonna have to go over there and play it. Maybe I'll film some footage of me playing it and upload it on here. But definitely a fantastic game and fun to play. And there's not really much to say about it. It's a side-scrolling beat 'em up game. You pick either this female warrior, the barbarian guy, or the dwarf, and you just run through, beat up a bunch of creatures and soldiers, and you can also beat up on these little gnomes that have sacks of potions, and the potions you collect so you can call in crazy special moves. Can't remember if it's the first one or the second one that has the dragons that come down, but definitely a fun game. You can also get on the backs of these mini dragons and these weird creature things with tails, and you can ride them around and use them to your advantage. So definitely a fun game to play. Once again, as a lot of games from this generation of Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, a lot of these games are better played with a second player or multiple players. So Golden Axe, although it is fun by yourself, it's definitely more fun with a friend. So definitely a game that I remember playing tons of when I was a young boy. So next we have Smackdown, Here Comes the Pain. Probably the best wrestling game ever made. It's arguable with WWF No Mercy for N64, which was another excellent game in the wrestling series, or wrestling gaming series. But Smackdown Here Comes the Pain is just an amazing experience. It lets you do everything you would want to do. The roster on it is fantastic because the Attitude Era was the best era for WWF, WWE now, but I'll always refer to it as WWF because that's what I grew up watching. And definitely the Attitude Era and then into this era was the best, hands down. I can't watch the new stuff, but Here Comes the Pain, definitely worth a pickup. There's just so much you can do, so many different matches, so many different characters. You can create your own character. They have a really nice story mode, and you can pick, how you want to play your story of being a superstar, and it's just an incredible wrestling game, and I've logged countless hours into that and the one right before, Just Bring It, with The Rock on the cover. Both are equally amazing in my opinion, but Smackdown Here Comes the Pain is an updated version, so that's what I chose to put in. And then lastly, for my favorite games of all time, part 2, we have Dragon Quest VIII, another game in the RPG genre that is just incredible. They really knocked it out of the park with this one. Dragon Quest VIII, just hours and hours of fun that I've spent on this game. When PS2 was in its prime, I spent so much time on this game, and I remember trying to hunt down different creatures to fight them in the arena, and it's just a fantastic game. The art style I love, the music, the land, everything about this RPG is just incredible. Man, I love it. And I did start playing it recently again, so I plan to continue playing it, even though right now I have Wild Arms 3 in the PS2, which I was playing this morning, but I'm definitely going to get back to this one because I remember spending many of days playing this and going through. It's just Dragon Quest VIII definitely pick it up. And it's really not that expensive as a whole for RPGs. RPGs are usually like super expensive, but this game's still not that pricey. So if you have not experienced it, you should probably go buy it now and give it a try. It's definitely worth a pickup. Definitely remember playing it so much. So that is all of part 2 of my favorite video games of all time. Stay tuned. I will have more videos out. I know I've been kind of rogue over the past month or two. I got sick with some stomach virus and dealing with different things. You know how life goes. I'm training for a new position at my work, and just I haven't had time to devote to making videos, but I'm definitely going to get back into it, as well as the website, which I hope and pray that I can have it launched by Sunday night this week, just in time so I can cover some of the E3 coverage. I want to have my website up and running. That's couchpotato.com, and hopefully I can get that launched